Call the meeting in order. For those that care to, please rise for a opening prayer and a pledge of flag. Dr. Ward, would you open this in a word of prayer, please?
Father, we seek your leadership in matters pertaining to our city and actually in matters pertaining to our life. And we continue to ask your blessings upon this community. In the name of your Son, amen.
Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Change it. Very nice. All right, council. First item on the agenda. Mr. Hunsinger has retired from the board. Would like to recommend Mr. Charlie Beshears for the Ward 4 council member. Mr. Beshears has been on council before and knows how we operate. Knows a lot about our codes, a lot about the history of the city, and hopefully he will gather a lot about the future of the city as we move along. But if that's so choose, I would like to motion to appoint Mr. Beshears.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Mr. Beshears, I'm going to have Brenda swear you in. After she gets done.
I forgot about that. Excuse me just a little while I look it up.
Let's talk about Brenda time. She's allowed one mistake a year. One.
She does a wonderful job.
She does an excellent job.
She's done this long.
While she's working on that, I am going to talk council. We do have some announcements. City Administrator Evaluations Council, they are due back to Brenda by October 10th. If you would like that electronically, please call Brenda and she will send that to you. If not, please stop by and get your hard copy. Please have those back in by October 10th and I'll start tabulating at that particular point. And we'll go from there and we'll present to Mr. Krischke at the end of October. Also, council members, if you are attending the McLean Reception and Business Casual, please do not wear a tie. Please contact Brenda to verify that you're going to be there. Also, Thursday night, and citizens as well, the Greene County Mayors Association meeting will be in Republic on Thursday, September 29th. It will be at the Community Center. And also, Thursday, November 11th, the budget meeting has been moved to Tuesday, November 8th. Due to Veterans Day holiday, make sure you make note of that as well as we go forward.
Which one's moved?
The November 11th budget meeting has been moved to Tuesday, November 8th due to Veterans Day holiday. So, I don't think that's right, though.
The 10th.
10th.
Holiday's the 11th, the 10th was Thursday, so I went from the 10th to the 8th.
Gotcha, 10th to the 8th, gotcha. So let's, all right, working with me. All right, fantastic. And council members, does anybody have any questions about that, about the budget meeting? We do have a calendar in your packet to make sure that you're aware of those. Mark your calendar. Most of those are at Fire Station number 1. We do have some meetings here, but I want to make sure that everybody's aware of where we're going to meet and when we're going to meet. Any questions on that? Okay. Also, Mr. Krischke has left the city administrator update in your packets as well. Please take a look at those. He has updated us on quite a few of the information pieces that we have out there. Some of the Oakwood 60 corridors, and he will be covering a few of those. But please be aware of those particular items. And, also, council, just for everybody's awareness, we are going to be talking about redistricting. As the city's population has grown, we're going to have to recut some of the wards to make them even. Right now, if we just do our current population, one of the wards has twice as many people as the other ward. So we're going to be recutting some of those to make them equal. I think the variance is 19 citizens between the wards. Mr. Tyson has done an excellent job of working those maps to make sure they're fairly consistent, and very representative of our city, so I just want to let everybody know that. As far as council members and things like that, I do not believe that it affected any of the current council members, but just want to let you know, we're going to be looking at that. We will have maps available, I think, here, coming up real soon. You can take a look at those. It's easier to look on a map. The there's a lot of data in there, but it's easier to just take a map and compare the two. So, okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah.
I can open, yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
What was,
Let's just do
a
something.
question on the numbers, which wards were affected by the larger, do you know that off the top of your head?
Yes, actually, I think it was Ward 2 had the most gain and growth. Is that correct? Ward 1, sorry, Ward 1 had the most gain, and so I think what they did was move some of that off. I think, if I'm not mistaken,
Kathy, I've been recruiting people.
well, you've done a good job. The smallest ward has 3,671. I think the largest ward has 3,690. After the redistricting, yeah. It's a variance of 19. So, is that about right?
Ward 1 is the largest now, Ward 3 is the smallest.
Right. Where it used to be the other way around.
They all came our way.
They're moving out. Why are they moving out of your ward?
They like our
Sure.
There's a reason for that.
So you're moving the apartments all into the other ward, right?
No.
No.
We tried to figure out.
Dr. Ward made the appropriate observation.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right.
Beautiful.
Mr. Bashirs, welcome, sir.
Official.
How's that feeling?
Okay, if you would please raise your right hand and repeat after me, please fill in your name at the blank. I blank.
I, Charles Bashir,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess all the qualifications
that I possess all the qualifications
for the office of this council
for the office of this council
as prescribed by law,
prescribed by law,
that I will support the Constitution of the state of Missouri,
that I will support the Constitution of the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws of this state,
provisions of all laws of this state,
affecting cities of this class,
affecting cities of this class,
and the ordinances of the city of Republic,
and ordinances of the city of Republic,
and faithfully demean myself in office.
and faithfully demean myself in office.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you very much.
All right. Welcome, Mr. Bashirs, and that big blue book there's a code book. We have a test on that tomorrow morning. If you would bother to read that tonight, we'd appreciate it. Very nice. I'd like to open it up now to citizen participation. Anyone wishing to speak to anything not on the agenda? Oh, my bad. I actually X'd that out. My apologies. I'd like to open it up now. Public hearing concerning an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 8 acres owned by T. Edward Penninger, located at the 700 block of East U.S. Highway 60, from local commercial C1 to general commercial C2. Welcome, Mr. Tyson. Please give us the overview, sir.
This ordinance will amend the official zoning map for 2 tracts in the 700 block of East U.S. Highway 60. You will know them both better as the Penninger Chevrolet site and what was formerly Poor Man's Appliance and Windfalls property. This ordinance will change those both from local commercial C1 to general commercial C2.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Anyone wishing to speak for this particular ordinance, please step forward, state your name, sign in, and give us your best 3 minutes. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against this particular public hearing, please step forward, state your name, sign in, and give us your best 3 minutes. Seeing none, public hearing closed. Now I'd like to open up to citizen participation. Anyone wishing to speak to anything not on the agenda, please step forward, state your name, sign in, and give us your best 3 minutes. Seeing none, citizen participation closed. I'd like to Need a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions?
I'll say. That's a lie.
Motion carries 6-0-2. Financial report, Mr. Krischke, would you please give us an overview, or council, do you have questions for Mr. Krischke on the financial report?
I can give you the overview on it,
Please
real
do.
quick. The amount of this, report is $85,766.83. You'll see a few larger expenses in there, and there are expenses that, very first page, there's $35,163, which is, a good majority of the total amount, and that was the expenses that we incurred for the bond refunding, and those were reimbursed to us out of the funds through the refunding of those two issues. So that amount, that's not the entire amount, but that is a good majority of it, and the entire amount we did get refunded back to us. You'll see a couple of charges in there to Republic Printing. We made a large purchase for paper that went throughout the different departments. We all did a kind of a mass purchase there to try to save money. And then there's a few other general renewals for software. There's some purchases for some crime grant equipment in the police department. And then you'll see a few larger ones back in the Parks Department. Most of that had to do with the Tiger Try. Tiger Try is actually a fairly profitable event for the public Parks Department, but there are costs associated with that, and that's what you're seeing in this particular one. $51.74 is the amount that we pay out to a company that comes in and does all the event timing and setup. And then there's another $1,000 expense that we pay, just a flat $20 to people that come out and volunteer because it is such a large event. If you have any other questions, I can answer them.
Questions, comments, discussion, council, for Mr. Krischke on financial report. Anything at all? Need a motion to approve financial report?
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Krischke, do you have anything from staff side?
Oh, nothing more.
Mr. Erickson?
No, sir.
No, sir. Mr. Keeling, welcome. Please give us a report from staff, sir.
Certainly, I have to make it a little assistance here on the overhead.
You want us to move, Mr.
That would
Keeling, or do you want us to stay here?
Well, whichever way you choose. I've never used this before, so bear with me here. This one. Thanks. Get darker, get lighter over time? Sure. Hopefully.
Sure, just for you.
Passing around is a copy, a hard copy of this document. It's still working its way around, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Mrs. Poole, you were holding it up there. Our department this year has been fortunate enough to have quite a bit of extra revenue come in, and this sheet here details where exactly the revenue came in from. All of this you are aware of. I just want to go ahead and make sure to go over it with everybody. Earlier in the year, we settled an agreement with the Springfield Greene County Parks Department as far as back payment for taxes, and that went from January 1st, 2010 to March 31st of 2011, based on the 2008 census, and that's the $84,359.38 figure you get there. That was for back payment through March 31st. This was unbudgeted funds. And then we also, as of April 1st, that same sales tax our percentage increased from that sales tax from 3.65% to 5.36%. And basically what that did is I'll obviously allow us to get a bigger portion of the pie that comes in from that Greene County sales tax. For the remainder of the year, I've actually budgeted conservatively for the last quarter there. Traditionally speaking, the last third is by far heavier than the start of the first 8 months of the year, but I have put in conservative budgets there of averaging $72,000 a month. That will put us in extra tax revenue that we weren't budgeting, roughly $142,917.54 above our budgeted figure. So for the year, once again, very fortunate to have this. So we're looking at an extra revenue from that sales tax of about $227,276.92. And for the purpose of talking about projects that we'd like to accomplish with those funds, we still have $22,000 remaining in our special projects funds that we either save from the pavilion or we put off the new service road until July of 12. So roughly have $249,276 that we're looking to spend on some special projects. These projects, the first one I'll talk about is the tennis court renovation. It is in the master plan. The first two are definitely in the master plan. The first one is really becoming almost a crisis situation. I think we may have updated council last budget cycle. Our tennis courts have deteriorated rapidly, and went ahead and went over today and took pictures of the courts. All of these, it's not, we have 4 courts, and it's not, these pictures aren't just on one court. They are on, I literally went around every court and took pictures of every single court. I don't know for sure if you were aware or not, they have deteriorated to the point where the school didn't want to play their matches here, which is fine, but they went ahead and built their new facility. But still, these courts get used heavily by our community, so we want to make them right. We want to make them to where they meet the standards of, if we want to have a youth program or tournaments of our own, they can meet those standards. So the pictures are much the same as you go through. Every court has the same problems. We've had a number of individuals come out and look at our tennis courts. One from Kansas, one that is the local expert here in the Springfield area, and they have both said the same things, that our subsurface is good, which is a wonderful step in the right direction. We don't have to go in, bulldoze, and start anew. The subsurface is good, which means, and they both think that we have a problem with our asphalt that is there, that originally when it was installed, some sort of sealant or protectant might have been put on top of the asphalt before they put in their surfacing, and this is allowing that surfacing not to stick. Now, we last resurfaced those courts in 2005, and typically speaking, you're supposed to resurface every 4 to 7 years. Now, we ran into a problem with that resurface as early as 2008, had to come back and do a repair, and here we are in 2011, and once again, Jim's been out there, I think the mayor's been out there, you can go out there and literally just peel this stuff off, and it's really deteriorated to the point where we've got to do something. The local person is Gerald Perry out of Springfield. They came out and looked at it, gave us what they thought would take to fix it. They are a proponent of a 2-inch hot mix asphalt overlay. They do Petromat in between, make sure that's good bonding, then resurface. Their bid for all the 4 courts, this is just an estimate. New net posts as well, because our net posts are leaning from being there so long, was around $95,000. We had the gentleman in from Kansas. His way of doing things is a little bit different, newer technology, but it's basically installing what's called what is the name of it? Nova Court system, and basically it is nothing more than just this. It is a surface that you put directly over your existing thing. Jim, you were there, and I can't remember all of what he said about it, but basically what this does is cover up your existing cracks and doesn't lead to any future problems. And both of the warranties are similar. This is less known about this system. I think they said Liberty or Independence. Part of our research will be to call these people, see how it's holding up. They did about there 5 years ago. A little bit more used in Kansas as well. So just so you'll know, the school went with the asphalt way of doing things. That's a little more traditional in our region. However, we don't want to go with that just because it's traditional. We want to at least look at both ways. So, the school board has already agreed to assist us in this project when we get around to it in the amount of $25,000. That was mainly thanks to Jim's work. Regardless of our in-project expense, that is their financial assistance towards this project. So it helps a lot. They recognize that they use those courts over the years, and they decided to give $25,000 towards this effort. So that is the project we're proposing with the tennis courts. What we'd like to do is go out to formal bids starting immediately. There's a little bit of, don't know if we're going to be able to get this in before the end of the year due to weather and things like that. They have to have certain heat and all that kind of stuff, but we're hopeful to get it done. If not, we'll definitely get on it in the spring so it'll be ready for play for the next year. So that's questions about tennis, the little bit overview about the tennis courts. Does anybody have any questions on the tennis courts? I don't know if we have any tennis players here, but our courts, it is amazing how much they get used at nighttime. It really is. Now, granted, that may go down a little bit with the school up there. I'm sure our community would be welcome to use that, but I don't see it going down a whole lot. So.
You said that we have a sealant on our asphalt now that's leaching through. If we do go back with asphalt.
They put a Petromat layer in between. Right.
And so with that also?
This, according to this gentleman, like I said, we got to do a lot of research on this.
Okay.
This will be, this is like a fabric, and it hardens. And if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, I really don't know what I'm talking about all that much, but to be honest with you. But it's an impressive project, so it's an impressive thing, so, but we'll look into this a lot more, so.
Thank you.
It comes in a giant roll.
Yes.
And they roll it out, and of course they seam it together, and they have a mesh material that went underneath it, so when they seamed it, it would seam together, so there would be no water that would leak underneath it. And then they would actually come in and repair all of the cracks and remove as much of that peeling surface as they can so they can get a nice smooth finish to it. But this really just floats, not floats, but it lays on top of it. It's not, glued down at all. It just fits, right over it. And it looked slick, but it's, when you see just a little section of it that they lay out, it's hard to imagine what it's going to be for the whole court, but it sure looks awfully nice. You can get it in any color that you would want to.
And there are places where the system has been, down for 4 to 5 years, and we'll make all those phone calls to see how it's holding up and things. So.
Mr. Clickenberry, go ahead. What about, like, theft is the wrong word, but damage caused by people that want to go and cause trouble? Does it hold up well against people?
It's a good question.
Cutting in.
This versus asphalt,
like
right? That's a good question.
Asphalt's pretty hard
Right.
to destroy other than spray painting it.
Yep. We will definitely ask those questions. I agree. I mean, if this is some sort of fabric material, could they just get a knife and?
Yeah.
Right.
Vandalism, that's the word I was looking for.
Hey, Council, and again, you guys are asking great questions. I think Mr. Keely will have a little bit more information when he comes back to make recommendations. So, if you have questions regarding some of the types of materials, make sure we get those asked. Next time, Mr. Keely, you obviously are going to do your homework, so.
Sure.
You've obviously heard from the council on some of that, so.
Sure.
It's good on tennis. What else do you have, sir?
Before we get into the reason why the gentleman here from SAP Design Associates, we have one other thing that we really need to accomplish as far as operations and safety. Our lighting at a Bergen White Memorial Baseball Softball Complex has been there for a long time. We have the fuse boxes now. You go around to every pole and do this. It's really become a safety and an operational issue. Shane knows about them. We've had a couple of incidents just this last summer where we couldn't get the lights on ever. We really want to get those replaced. An estimate to get the 20 replaced that we need to get replaced on fields 1, 2, and 5 with new 90-amp breaker boxes at around $9,000. Once again, that'll have to come to council since it's over $5K as well. So. Lights have been there a long time, just as the fields have been there. We've been trying to renovate as we're going along, so.
Fair enough.
Okay. Eric McCune and Michael Hampton are here from SAP Design Associates. They're going to talk to you a little bit about furthering the master plan over at Martin Park and a project involving an amphitheater and outdoor classroom.
Okay. Thank you for having us back. As Jared said, to follow up on the master plan and to look at a particular item at Martin Park. Maybe as you said earlier, we'll try and give you our best 3 minutes. How's that? But really, what we have is an image overall of Martin Park, and what we were asked to do and what we suggested as part of the master plan was to, because there is a grade change where the old pool was, is the possibility of creating an amphitheater at that location. So what we have done is to go ahead and, next one, is a close-up of that. You can see some of the grade change as you go from north to south.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to make sure I'm right. And to address some of the issues, both site-wise and grading-wise within that space as part of what we're looking at. So from the northwest to the southeast is how the grade falls from the parking lot essentially into the balance of the parking area. One thing we did want to kind of remember is as we start to look at some of the park projects is to maybe keep in mind some of the materials that we have used in other projects and to maybe try and maintain some of that imagery and materials in some of the newer stuff that we do. So what we looked at was, again, just an aerial shot overhead is the very basic outline of a sloped amphitheater where the seating was created by concrete seats, and it was continuous concrete in a very typical radiating fashion from that area. Again, you can see that with the pool and the paving is all demoed out at this point. What we then tried to do was to take that and start to do a little bit of a deviation to that. And as opposed to filling the entire area with concentric rings every so often is to, at the very front, create those concentric rings where we might have sort of a critical mass at smaller presentations. But as we go out farther and farther from the stage is to start to deviate those and create broken points, wider points, and to create a geometry that might allow people to lay out a blanket in some of those larger areas, or to have tables and chairs, or to set chairs up rather than just the hard seating at the front edge of that. And that allowed us to get a little bit of creativity in the type of space that you could use it for, as well as maybe a little more multifunction at other times during the year. What you can see is off to the left of this slide, however, is the drive and the sidewalk. What we're really looking at is, as we looked at the master plan and as we looked at the pool, is while that is an area that you could use is used as a drop-off or was used as a drop-off, we found it a little bit awkward in terms of it being off to the side of where everyone really might be coming from, normally the parking area, as well as the steps to get up to it, or if you were to park in the parking lot, having to kind of work along the edge of the building to then go into the front of the building and then through into the amphitheater area. And really what we're talking about is starting to create a different front to this building, or focus of the amphitheater itself is coming from the parking lot and working our way to the edge of the building, so that what was the front of the building really isn't the front of the building. And even
This right here is the old front as you come off that circle drive, and what we're talking about is coming in here and creating a little niche and entrance from the side, so people coming from the parking lot can enter the building more easily, becomes more accessible.
and we've got a couple other views.
The other thing this shows too is we're talking about getting rid of the main road that goes through the park. So you can see kind of a termination point here with maybe some additional parking. But that eliminates the drive that would go behind the amphitheater.
We have that drive, as of today, we've more or less discussed it, and we're looking at July of 12 to eliminate that drive, so.
Jared, what's the project time for this if the drive is eliminated in 12?
What we're hoping to do, Mayor, is accomplish this first, really as a part of an overall improvement to J.R. Martin, making it a showcase park, Center City Showcase Park. We haven't got into too much time frames as far as construction of everything, this particular amphitheater and things like that. Like I said, we're looking at the demo in the old road and the new concert series or outdoor movies and things like that, so.
All right, thank you, sir.
So again, we just wanted to show some different views of that. A covered amphitheater. Jared asked us to look at this in 3 phases also. The first being the amphitheater portion, the second being the renovation to the pool house pavilion, and the third being the covered stage pavilion area.
This kind of shows you the contours of and the slope of the site.
That would be the view that you would have as you're coming in from the parking area. And we have looked at the topography of the site. Again, how you vary an upper level plaza to a lower level plaza, we would certainly continue to look at that, but it does allow you a variation of spaces and even places for people to hang out and sit. On there, we've created on the very edge, if you look right down the front edge of the building itself, you can see that we have an area of planters, kind of to create an edge.
Planters.
With the mouse.
Correct. That edge right there to where you could create a variation in the types of retaining walls that are trying to define space within the amphitheater area.
We've also, we'll get into the floor plan, but we've also, this image shows you that we've created, at least the concept or the idea of creating concessions that faces outward, so that in an event of a band or a concert or some sort of setting, we can sell concessions and administer it there.
And what we did is to then look at the existing building itself, which would kind of be a phase 2 project. If you look at the corners from what is the covered pavilion area on the left edge, over to the right edge of the very large storage room, and then there's 2 restrooms. The existing building is actually the wall between the storage room and the restrooms. And that is because of the plumbing that is within the building. We're trying to determine if the adequacy of that, as well as getting in and doing some renovation within the building. A lot of times it is less expensive to go ahead and put that new construction on the end of the building rather than try and saw cut and renovate within the confines of the building. But ultimately, out of the program that we have for it, the locations of what we're talking about are really, we feel the restrooms on the east side of the building with the possibility of storage or a community room located in the central, then the kitchen concessions at the gable end, projecting out into the plaza towards the amphitheater, and then the possibility of doing some demolition on some walls to allow a covered canopy area underneath the existing roof. And again, as we said, it may be less expensive for us to do the demo work and put the toilets where the storage room is indicated. It may be less expensive for us to put the pavilion on the west side of the existing building to create that. Those are options that we would continue to look at once we start to move down the road towards that. But programmatically, we think these are elements that will all really enhance the park and the ability to have that space when you are at the amphitheater. We thought that a community room might be available to the public, that you could they could check that out as part of the park or event. If it were to rain, they could come in undercover if they needed to. So just trying to create a variation of types of spaces as part of that. And then Jared wanted us to kind of take a stab at what the range of magnitude that we were looking at for each phase of the projects. Phase 1 is obviously the demolition of the pool and the decking. We would need to keep the pump house because we understand that there's some electrical items down at that location. We would remove the large the filtration tanks that are down there, but we'd have to make some water/weatherproofing protection of the pump house. Again, the landscaping and regrading of that area, the constructed seating we were indicating, as well as some of the planter walls to try and define that. Phase 2, we're looking at the renovation of that building. At this point, what we're saying is that Phase 2 is within the confines of the footprint of the existing building, and just so you know, that's about $50 a square foot of renovation, additions and renovations. So heavy touch in some areas, light touch in others. Then Phase 3 would be to look at expanding some of the paving and the flat work in larger areas of the site, to remove the drive and the front steps, as well as to create a covered pavilion/canopy at the stage area. We're looking at the possibility that I think you're using your pavilions to the maximum of their ability, and the possibility that that stage could have a covered piece on it that could act as a stage for concerts, but also as a pavilion when we weren't having concerts. Trying to multitask that space was what we were thinking about at that point. So again, you can see the range of magnitude of those projects, and we certainly think that we could do those, and certainly look at refine those budgets as we move farther down in the development of those. Other questions or concerns?
Council comments, questions? For staff design or Mr. Keeling? Anything at all?
Can you, since Charlie is not new to the area, but new to the council, I guess, this go around, but just give a brief overview of the entire master plan, because this is part of
Right.
the master plan that you did, I believe it was last year, early part of last year.
Right. One of the things about this, what we did is we looked at overall all of the city and its boundaries. Some of the things that we felt were important in terms of the master plan of each of those parks, and how to improve, provide recommendations for park space, as well as if we have existing parks, what do we want to do to those, and the different levels of types of parks in terms of sports parks versus school parks versus neighborhood parks versus pocket parks. And this was more of one of the Miller Park. We kind of it's kind of a hybrid at this point, in that you're using it as a sports complex, but what our recommendation on that one was to maybe decentralize that, as you have a lot of activity that is going on at Miller Park, and thinking about the possibility in the future of developing a sports park for ball fields, soccer fields, those sorts of things. Here at Martin Park, what we were looking at as one of the big things was to work on creating a school neighborhood community park, to where we could make improvements to the ball fields that are there for community use. But one of the significant things about Martin Park was the fact that there's a drive that goes through the middle of the park, and that's bisecting the area, the park and landscaping area. And what we were trying to do is to get the circulation to the edge of the park, so that you can arrive, but then once you get into that park, it becomes a non-vehicular, pedestrian-friendly area. So that was kind of what Michael had talked about. And then we also had recommendations on how to strengthen maybe some of the linear connections in drainage ways and right-of-ways, to try and get connectivity between these parks, so that you have a park network throughout the community. So just some of those bigger ideas. Those are all part of the master plan, and we're really pleased that we keep getting invited back to work on those and reinforce what those ideas in the master plan are, and we think that's great on your guys' part.
Mr. Keeling, do you want to add anything before we finish up? Sir?
No, just going back to what we touched on a little ago, I think Martin has a unique space, and could be wow for our community. I really do. Now, we've gotten rid of Greer District. We got rid of the Cox Barn. We're trying to make it a little more modern, trying to get it to a place where our whole city is proud to come down to that centralized park. Now, we even talked to Vernon. I know this is long down the ways down the road, but he's even said something about you might eventually take that old school, we could just give it to you, get rid of it, and it becomes a huge city park, and I really like those ideas. So we're excited about Martin Park and what it can be.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Keeler or Staff Design? Anything at all, council?
You did have a picture next to the amphitheater of that building. What was that building?
That, is actually covering the electric service into, that apparently,
Filtration, I think is what, the old filtration.
a seal filtration building, but there's electric service in there that serves the lighting within the park. If it makes sense for us to take care of that in the new building, we can certainly look at that, but.
Curious what it was.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments, council? Anything at all? Eric at Staff Design, thank you. Mr. Keeley, thank you, sir.
Nice.
Thanks for your update.
Thank you for your time.
Here, you got the.
Jerry, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How is the parking situation coming along over there on Mill for the ball field? There was talk about building a new parking area and improving that road into it.
Correct. Now, we are looking at doing that new parking area, in front of Field 5, you know where we put the new pavilion? We're looking at doing a new parking area there to service the ball fields and overflow from Miller Park. What we're ultimately we want to do is familiar, but for those of you who are not, Field 5, you can see from Miller Park, we are strapped as far as number of fields go as well. But what we'd like to do is put in an additional field as you're driving up to Field 5 to the left, and then having that to a main point of entry. And we have two main points of entry to our baseball softball complex. And that new parking lot would then service, obviously, the baseball softball complex and then overflow of the community center when we have special events. I'm sorry I don't have an image to show you exactly where those are at, but we could use another ball field right now.
Would that include the improvement of the road going into it?
Now, are you talking about off of Miller or?
Off of Miller.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be much of a road anymore. It would be just a stub into a parking area. You're talking about the one that just goes right up into Field 5,
One
right?
that's hard to get into and out of.
Right, because there's an incline, you mean?
And it's single
Because
lane.
of its narrowness.
Yeah.
Single.
And it's hard to make the turn.
Right, we could definitely address that. I think David has expressed interest too with maybe lining it up with,
There's a manhole or something on one side of
Right.
it that
what we have right now is earth parking, Field 5, and they just park in there as much as they can pop. They're in there tonight because of football, if you go by there right now. But organized, structured parking with another field, that was our ultimate goal for that space, because as you guys probably know, we could use the field right now. So.
need the parking also, though, for the people that are coming.
It's very true, very true.
If possible, would you get some information on kind of the plan for that?
Sure.
Maybe give it to Gary and maybe the
Yep.
council next time you get a chance to
Can do
get
that.
a picture of what that looks like. All right. Good. Anything else for Mr. Keeley?
Get your stick.
Give just a schedule on going forward on this. We wanted to make sure you got the presentation of what the potentials are for Martin Park, and since we do have extra revenue, it's not that we take this lightly by any stretch, but this is additional revenue that we got, one from the, as Jared mentioned, the renegotiation of the sales tax, and then the increase in the census also produced additional income. This is really more of a one-time revenue source for us, because in August, I believe, of next year, the one sales tax that Greene County had passed reverts from a quarter cent to an 8 cent. So we're gonna go back to the old level that we used to get, and it's not going to impact our budget as much, but we're not gonna continue to get this greater source of revenue past next year. You know, if or when Greene County ever decides to run an in-parks tax, then we got the potential to add to that revenue. But, this is a one-time source that we felt could make a significant impact to the city. So if we're in agreement, we'll keep working on putting this stuff together.
And one other thing on the parks tax, part of the agreement on the parks tax to spend it on capital improvements, not debt service. So therefore, that's why you're seeing this come to us forward as it is, because that is part of the agreement that the county has on the parks taxes, that it is built for capital improvements on your parks. So, and that's exactly what Mr. Keeling's brought forward. So, anyway, other questions on that? Any questions, comments, anything else?
Does it necessarily have to be, it doesn't necessarily have to be used in 2011, does it, or just?
No, it does not have to be in if you're talking about if some of these projects carry.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it does not.
Exactly. Anything else from Mr. Keeling? Jared, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On the next item on the agenda, future community events, I should have just had Jared stand up here and read them all, because they're usually all over at his place anyway. September 27th, October 11th, and October 18th, informative senior coffee breakfast. That is a free event from 10 to 11:15. September 27th, October 4th, 11th, 18th, and the 25th, also the arthritis exercise program, 1:30 to 2:30. Free and registration is not required. September 28th, Messy Munchkins, 10:30 to 11:30. Pre-registration is required. September 29th, toddler tumbling, 5 to 6:15, or 6:45 to 7:30. So also September 29th, Republic Farmers Market at Orchlands, 5:30 to dusk. September 29th and October 27th is a senior movie, 2 p.m., free popcorn and coffee. King, what's the movie?
We're still on True Grit. We got the agenda out early, and October 27th we haven't determined.
Oh, okay, very good, very good. Well, Jim has some suggestions for that October 27th movie, so make sure you get with him. September 29th, October 6th, 13th, 20th, and the 27th is arthritis program, 10 to 11. It's free and registration is not required. October 1st, this coming Saturday, is the Pumpkin Days downtown. Please plan on attending that. It's always a great event. I think it's one of the largest events in Republic, along with Have a Blast. So plan on attending that. October 3rd, the 17th, the 24th, and 31st, Toddler Open Gym, 10 to 12. No registration is required, but a fee of $1 per toddler. No Toddler Open Gym on October 10th. October 4th is another informative senior coffee breakfast, 2 to 3:15. It's a free event. October 10th and 28th, Schools Out programs, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pre-registration is required for that particular event. October 13th, 20th, and 27th, Toddler Tumbling, 5:30 to 6:15, or 6:45 to 7:30. Pre-registration is required. October 14th and 28th, Toddler Story Time, 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. Free event. October 15th, Parents Night Out, 5 to 9. Pre-registration is required. October 31st is Treat Yourself in Republic, 5:30 to 8:30. Local businesses, churches, and organizations will remain open on Halloween night to provide a safe alternative to trick-or-treating. Map of participating locations will be available 1 week before the event. And also October 31st is the Boogie Bash, 5:30 to 8:30 at the Republic Community Center. Jared, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, it's not enough.
Got a lot of good staff over there.
You do have a lot of good staff. Board commissions and committee reports, Board of Adjustments, October 6th, Capital Improvements, October 18th. City Council is October 10th, October 20th is a budget meeting, October 24th is a council meeting, October 27th is a budget meeting, along with November 8th. Planning and zoning is October 17th. Also would like to mention October 10th. Our next council meeting will be the first meeting and the first day of work for our new finance director, Laura Guy. She will be here that night, and be prepared to pepper her with questions and welcome her to the City Republic. All right. On to old business. Need a motion to have the second reading of bill number 11-24. Motion. Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, adding Chapter 245, Republic City Code, Food and Food Establishments.
Need a motion to have final approval of bill number 11-24. Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Krischke, give us the overview, sir.
This will be one of those, I'll quickly turn it over to Ron, even though my name's on it, I can't take the credit for this.
Mr. Derrickson, give us the overview,
This
sir.
is more in Ron's field than mine.
As said last time, Springfield Greene County Health Department approached us 2 or 3 years ago about possibly adopting some enforcement sections in our code so that they could do enforcement in municipal court here in Republic rather than having to take enforcement to state court. What this does is basically allow that to happen. The health department could come in right now and enforce the same thing that's before you, only they'd have to go to state court. If we adopt this, this allows it to be handled in municipal court, which they feel will give them a little bit more of a quicker resolution of prosecutions if they need them, rather than getting them tied up in state court. So it really doesn't add any extra enforcement above and beyond what they can do right now. It just allows it to be done in Republic Municipal Court.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Derrickson? Anything at all? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrelson?
Aye.
Councilmember Poole?
Aye.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Rushiers?
Abstain.
Councilmember Grimm?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Clinking-Beard?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0-1. On to new business. Need a motion to have the first reading of bill number 11-25. Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 8 acres owned by T. Edward Pinniger, located at the 700 block of East US Highway 60, from local commercial C1 to general commercial C2.
Welcome, Mr. Tyson. Please give the council the overview on this particular agenda item.
Again, this particular ordinance will rezone the two properties shown on the map that's attached to your exhibit. They're on US Highway 60 East from local commercial C1 to general commercial C2. This particular rezone is a city staff initiated rezone, and it has been brought to you because of a condition that was created by this property being a lawful non-conforming use on Highway 60. These two properties have both been used as they are currently being used for many years, and became non-conforming because of code changes. So they were grandfathered in. And so now that Mr. Pinniger desires to redevelop these properties, it was necessary to rezone them to bring them into compliance.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Tyson? Mr. Harder?
And this will, you said this will bring it into compliance then, or you'll not have the, what'd you call it, the,
Lawful non-conforming use, that's correct.
okay.
Other
comments, questions, discussion?
So the piece directly behind where Lake Falls was, that was basically just part of their gravel parking lot, you know, that was a separate piece of property, that's already C2?
Yes.
Anything else, council? This is a first read. If you have questions, comments, discussion about it, if you have questions about the zoning classifications in or around a particular piece of property, please give it to Mr. Garrett, the Planning and Economic Development Department. On the next item, other business. Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Resolution number 11-R-50, resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, awarding the bid and authorizing the purchase of a work truck for the wastewater division of Public Works Division. Need a motion?
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Welcome, Mr. Brock. Please give us the overview, sir.
Thank you. The wastewater department is budgeted to replace a 2000 Sonoma. In an effort to do that, we solicited bids from 7 different vendors. We received 4 bids. The agenda item was prepared on the basis of Jimmy Mitchell Motors submitting a bid for a Ford Ranger. They have since withdrawn their bid due to factory unavailability. You notice that Republic Ford gave us a bid on an F-150. Greg Sharman, Republic Ford, had indicated he didn't think he could get an order in. This will be the last model year for Republic Ford, and factory orders have apparently closed out. So
For Rangers.
For Rangers, yes. So we do have some modifications to the agenda item as presented. With the 4 bids we received, 2 from Jimmy Mitchell Motors that they need to withdraw, Republic Ford for an F-150 at $19,800, and Reliable Chevrolet for a 2012 Colorado, $21,900. Our low bidder is Republic Ford for the F-150. We specified a compact truck. Minimum standards would meet a Ranger or Colorado. So the bid submitted by Ford exceeds the specs that we produced, the minimum standards we produced for the sealed bid.
Okay, Mr. Derrickson, you want to take this one?
What
please, sir?
action are you asking council to take?
They would need to amend the resolution, section 1, so as to award the bid to Republic Ford for the F-150.
And that is the motion under section 1 that you would like to make to council. Is that correct, sir?
Correct. There's a whereas that would also need to be.
Yes, sir. Above it.
I'd make that motion.
Make that motion, Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of amending section 1 along with the whereas to accept Republic Ford 2012 Ford F-150, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, please carry on, Mr. Brock.
As mentioned before, wastewater budgeted for a replacement truck. Our apparent low bidder, Republic Ford, we are a little bit over budget on that, approximately $1,300. Wastewater fund as a whole is doing very well. We have a very good net positive for this time of the year, so I would not expect that this overture to be an issue for our end of the year bottom line.
In addition to that, as we do with all of our excess vehicles, we'll send this over to the auction. It's currently not running, so it'll be towed over to the auction and it'll be sold. But remarkably, these things, running or not, will bring a fair amount of money. And there's a chance that that gap between 19.8 and 18.5 will be reduced. I don't know what that final amount will be, but there'll certainly be something there to reduce that gap.
Questions, comments, discussion from council? From Mr. Brown. Anything at all? See none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Brock. Resolution number 11-R-51, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the execution of a state and municipal lease purchase agreement to finance the acquisition of a dump truck. I need a motion.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Brock, please give us the overview.
Another portion of our Public Works budget in the street department, our budget plan was to finance the purchase of a new dump truck. Staff solicited lease purchase proposals. I believe we sent invitations, solicitations for proposals to about 7 banks or 7 financial institutions, including all the local banks. We received 3 responses: Commerce Bank, the Bank of Missouri, Mid-Missouri Bank, all local banks. The primary factor in determining the best proposal, of course, is the fixed interest rate. The best interest rate we received, 2.55% from Commerce Bank, substantially less than the competitors. This would be a 3-year term, approximately $90,000 principal with annual payments shown in the table there at the 2.55% interest rate. the total interest on a $90,000 loan is just under $3,500.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Buck? Budgeted? I'll ask that question because I know somebody's going to ask it. Budgeted?
It is budgeted at $33,000.
Excuse me?
At $33,000.
Okay, thank you. Council, other comments, questions, discussion, Mr. Wilson?
What's the life expectancy of a dump truck?
We're stretching out the life of a 92 and a 94, so certainly is a 15 to 20 year 15 to 20 year span.
The other thing this vehicle will do is help us in our snow removal in the winter months. Hopefully we don't get anything like we did last year, but in the event that we do this, I think it's fully equipped with a plow and blade or whatever else is part of that, but at least that will add to the fleet, so we'll have a little better coverage for snow events.
Are you actually going in for the 90 or the 91.9?
It would be 91.9, but when we solicited proposals, we didn't have our firm bid yet.
Other questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. It's supposed to be resolution 1-1.
Yeah, it should be resolution 1-1 instead of 1-0.
Let me read it as
It's
such.
just correct on the
Okay.
resolution.
I'll read that back for a second. Resolution number 11-R-52, resolution of the City Council of Republic, Missouri, approving the purchase of an International Model 7300 dump truck for the Street Division of Public Works. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Welcome back to Brock. Please give us an overview, sir.
Thank you. As Mr. Krischke had mentioned, snow removal last year, we recognized we were a bit shy on heavy equipment for the larger storms. We do have two aging trucks, 1992, 1994. Would probably venture to guess there's not an original wire on the 92 anymore. However, our budget plan, as I mentioned before, was finance the acquisition of a new dump truck over a 3-year period. Staff is proposing to buy off the MoDOT state bid for a 2012 International. This is fully equipped with a dump box. Number of pages here on the specifications, but it's be equipped with a hydraulic system, hydraulic plow. We have a salt spreader available that would be fitted into the back of the truck over the winter months. The bid price with the I do want to mention real quick, we did work with the base truck is straight off the Missouri Department of Transportation bid. We did work with Viking Sides Midwest to get rid of some of the MoDOT lighting that we didn't need, some of the ancillary equipment. I don't know if you've ever seen their dump trucks. They hook a lot of equipment to those, and they just didn't need all those bells and whistles, so to speak. So the last couple pages, we deducted about $18,600 in strictly ancillary equipment, and then added on about $7,000 just to have it function with the type of equipment that we typically use day in and day out. So the total purchase price comes in at about $91,958, and again, that would be paid out by our finance company, Commerce Bank, so the city would actually see an outlay of about $31,200 this year.
Questions, comments, discussion, Mr. Brock. Mr. Wilson?
It does come with the necessary lights to operate the snow plow, does it?
It does indeed.
Additional questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Brock? Anything else, council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Brock. Resolution number 11-R-53, resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, ranking engineering firms for the purposes of negotiating a contract for general engineering consultants. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Mr. Brock, please the overview, sir.
Over the last couple of months, we have been through a process for the City Council to select a general consulting engineer for an upcoming 3-year period. We began with soliciting statements of qualifications. We had 7 firms respond. The staff member in Public Works and Planning Department went through those statements in detail and graded the firms. 2 firms came to the top, Olson Associates and HDR Engineering. We invited these firms in. They gave an extended presentation to a selection committee comprised of city staff and city council members. Council members Gary Wilson and Jeff Klinkenbeard representing the Capital Improvements Committee, Mr. Krischke, Ms. Noggle, and myself. That committee again ranked the firms and have scored the firms and made a recommendation based on those scores. The scoring system there that we used had a maximum allowable of 220 points. The committee scoring ranked the firms as Olson Associates at 201 and HDR at 189. I want to make clear that this is not put any restriction on the City Council. This is simply to provide you a guide. We are, however, at a point where the City Council does need to pick the firm that they would like staff to continue negotiations with the goal of coming to acceptable terms on the rates that would be used over the next 3 years.
Before we get there, Mr. Brock, I would like to also, is this 2 or 3 year contract?
3 year.
Okay, and then my comment is more of a statement for you and staff. Next time we hit the target on when we're supposed to have this, because this is late. So the next time we better have this in check before we get to this point, because we are behind where we should have been 6 months ago. So make sure everybody at staff has got that on their calendar so we do not miss it next time. I appreciate HDR, Tier and Olson taking time. I appreciate all the engineering firms. And as we grow, we're going to need the best engineering firms, and I think we've got 2 very good ones here. With that said, there's less than 10% difference between the 2. But council, again, Mr. Brock has given you the overview. Mr. Krischke, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Klinkenbeard, Ms. Noggle, Mr. Tyson, they all sat on the committee. If I left anybody out, I apologize. At this point, I'd like to have you open up the floor opportunity for questions, comments, discussion from Mr. Brock on this particular agenda item. And Mr. Wilson, Mr. Klinkenbeard, I'm going to give you the floor as well to say, since you were on the committee, and then I'll get to Mr. Beshears in a second. Would you like to add anything?
It's all yours. It seemed like maybe in another time when the economy might be a little different, our city's growing a lot, that it might have been worth looking at going with someone different. Olson's been on 25 years and maybe getting a fresh pair of eyes, and HDR is very good and has a nationwide presence with a lot of different people that we could hook into, but it became quite obvious as we went through it that Olson can save probably time and money because of their long knowledge of the things that they've worked on here for the city. And like we said, we're talking about a 10-point spread on 200 points. They are both very close, going to be very good, but in the end, and I would have probably leaned towards Archer, just to be honest with you. I think Mr. Wilson here may have gone the other way, but after hearing their second presentations here with the council and looking at it again, I think with the way the economy is and things being a little slower, that might be wise to go ahead and go with Olson again for another 3 years. Just because we can call them up, they don't have to do a lot of extra legwork or anything to answer questions, and so that's That's my 2 cents from being on there.
Thank you, Mr. Quickenbeard. Mr. Wilson?
Basically what he says, I wasn't expecting to speak about this, but anyway.
I always like making your face turn red, Gary. Just go with your white hair.
Oh, I don't mind that at all. But, they were both good, and it was a hard decision to make, and it was very few points that separated them. But again, with the experience and the way the economy is, I kind of went with, I did go with Olson and Associates.
Thank you, Mr. Quickenbeard. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Pursuer, did you have a question, sir?
I did not.
Okay, good. I saw it with this, and usually when I see something like that, I'm on you. Sorry to initiate you the first meeting. Council, questions, comments, discussion from Mr. Brown or Mr. Krischke or Mr. Wilson or Mr. Quickenbeard, either one. The recommendation, Mr. Brock, is for Olson Associates on this particular paper, correct?
Correct. The resolution asks the council to essentially rank them in order. Staff would then go back over the contractual terms with the highest ranked firm and then look at their proposal for hourly rates for the 3-year period.
Okay.
If we do not feel that we're getting an acceptable price from the top ranked firm, then we would move to the second firm.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure council understands. This is basically to allow city staff to negotiate with whoever you vote for their rates and for their services, and if staff deems those not acceptable, then we go to a second rank one. Does that make sense?
So we need to make a motion to make one of the other numbers.
Yes, and here in a second. Mr. Bashir?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir, I'm going to shoot you. Go ahead.
So Olson is the current engineering firm, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, how long, 3 years?
For a contract.
But they've already been our engineer for the last 3.
They used to be Scott Engineering.
25.
That'll help you.
Correct.
That helps, yes.
Olson, they call it a merger, but they bought you out, John. It's all right. I'll tell it like it is. It was a merger between Olson and Scott, and they went with the Olson name.
Scott when I was on, okay.
Yes, sir. That is correct. It was Scott when you were on, sir. Other questions, comments, discussion?
I'll make the motion then to rank Olson 1 and Archer 2.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor to rank Olson 1 and Archer 2. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. What do you need from us?
Well, we need to approve the resolution.
Okay. We've made the ranking official. Basically now it's time to vote that we are going to negotiate with Olson for the engineering contract for 3 years as part of the negotiation, and if that negotiation is deemed unacceptable by Mr. Brock and the committee, then we will move on to H.D. Archer. Everybody understand the bill on the floor? Okay, Mr. Grooms?
If it is deemed acceptable or not, either way, once a price has been negotiated, does that come back to this body, or is it done?
It will come back for council's authorization.
You okay with that, sir? Okay. Good question. Other questions, comments, council? Anything at all? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Brock. Resolution number 11-R-54, resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the execution of a work order with Olson Associates for the evaluation of sewer life stations. Should be sewer lift stations? Okay. I've never, sewer life station, that's a new one on me. Let me read that again. Let me correct that right there with a T. Resolution number 11-R-54, resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the execution of a work order with Olson Associates for the evaluation of sewer lift stations. Need a motion?
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Welcome, Mr. Brock. Please give us an overview, sir.
As councils should be aware, in July, we had a sewer overflow in the vicinity of Schuler Creek Lift Station. Shortly after that, Mr. Krischke had expressed an interest in having a firm, having another set of eyes, so to speak, come in and kind of double-check the condition of our pump stations. In the early part of this month, we had another malfunction at the headworks of the treatment plant, resulted in another overflow, and the Department of Natural Resources is now asking that we do a comprehensive evaluation of our sewer pump station. So we have negotiated the terms with Olson Associates, a team to be led by John Forrester, to go through each one of our pumping stations, check the condition of the pumps and impellers, the pumping rates, check all the mechanical operations, review the types and operational conditions of alarms that notify us when we have malfunctions, and also to review city staff's inspection procedure that we use on a weekly basis. The cost for this, the result of that will be put into a formal report. If there's any deficiencies noted, which I have to admit I'll be a little upset if we have some deficiencies out there that we don't already know about. But anyway, any deficiencies or recommendations for repairs and improvement, we'll get cost estimates for the more substantial ones, and that'll be provided in a written report for City Administrator, DNR, and the City Council. The cost of this evaluation is $7,200. I will say that this was not an anticipated expense for this year. However, we do have substantial unencumbered funds in the wastewater engineering line item. We had budgeted for essentially to get all the way through the bypass elimination plan this year at $80,000, and timing-wise, I don't think that we will use those funds up. So I think we have funds available to complete this, and would recommend that council approve the resolution.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Brock? Anything at all? Do you have any questions, David, you want to ask? I mean, nobody else is asking anything.
At this point, I feel like I should bring out the dessert tray.
Got every item on other than.
Anything else, council?
Only if it has Cool Whip.
Only if it has Cool Whip. You can't have dessert without Cool Whip. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstention? Motion carries 8-0. At this particular time, we do have an executive session item. However, I would like to make everyone aware that after we finish with the executive session, we are adjourning. There is not any other business after the executive session, no other open business after executive session. Once we finish the executive session, we are adjourned. So I need a motion to go into executive session under RSMO 610.021.1.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrelson?
Aye.
Councilmember Full?
Aye.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Brashear?
Aye.
Councilmember Groom?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Clinkenbeard?
Motion carries 8-0. Let's take a 5-minute recess and be back in here in just 5 minutes. Thank you.